Hello again, everyone. So, the last lesson, we talked a little bit about the grid system in Bootstrap. Hopefully, you've been able to practice that. So, you're already familiar with the grid system from CSS. So, our job is made a lot easier by using the ready-made classes in Bootstrap, right? You agree? Cool. Now that we've learned the grid logic, I think we can move on to the header section of our project, and you'll see why. So I'm separating the project section by section, and the first section you see here, it's a header section. And as you can also see, this section contains a title, a paragraph, and a button. And there's also an image in the background. So it looks like it might just be an easy chapter, huh? Okay, so let's continue our project by going to our HTML file. And I'll write the header section as a comment to indicate that the changes that we're going to make here are specific to the header section. Now I'm starting to write codes with the header tag, and I'll add ID. So I think this part is a row and a column. In our last lesson, we already talked about the grid features, so I'll just keep writing that code. So I'll create a div with an overlay class, and we will be creating some shading in the background, so we'll add this div. And I'll add a div with a container class. And like I said before, we can prepare this field as a row and a column. So I'll create a div of the row class and a div of the col class. So we can also use the col medium or col large class here, but not going to need it since we prepared it as a single row and a column. So we don't really have a problem when the screen changes, right? And we can add our title to this with the h1 tag. All right, so now it's time to add the paragraph and button. So I'll add the paragraph first, and I'll add a button with a button tag. All right, so now let's take a look at what we're doing here. So our title, our paragraph, our button, that's all ready. Not exactly where we want them though, huh? So for this, let's add text center as a class to the div, which will have row class. So now when we look at it, it is centered horizontally. And I can currently use the margin top feature for H1 to center it vertically. But when we start preparing our CSS file, we can make a different edit. So let's see what our page looks like. And as we can see, it's now centered. But now I want to change the look of our title a little bit, don't you think? So let's go to the Bootstrap site for this documentation. Then I'll click on Content and Typography. So have a look around here. A few things to choose from. And you can see the titles will change according to the display class we use. So let's say I want to add display 3. To the H1 tag and use it. Looks a little big. So if I write display 2, the title part looks even bigger. So why don't we just go ahead and try display 4. Yeah, that looks like it'll work. All right, so now let's say I want to change the font color of the paragraph here. So here I'll just click on the colors option under utilities on this Bootstrap site. And here too, it gives us some information about the colors we can use. So I'm looking at the color list and yeah, I'll add the text muted class to our paragraph in the HTML file. And I think those changes make it look a whole lot better. So now it's time for the button. So for this, again, I'll write buttons in the documentation page in the search bar. And here we see some buttons in different styles. And we can also see what classes are used. And it uses the button class. And when I use button success, the green button is generated. You can also use the button danger class to create the red button. And scroll down a little bit and look at the outline classes. Yeah, so that looks a whole lot better. Now, the buttons here also start with the button outline class. So I want to add this button to our project, so I'll just copy the class here and I'll paste it in HTML. All right, so that pretty much completes what I wanted to show you in this section. But I want to point out that we have only made changes to the HTML file so far. We've not done anything to our CSS file. So using the available classes in Bootstrap, we're able to add styles that we want to with just a few lines. All right? So in our next lesson, we're going to start preparing our CSS file, and we will continue to edit. I'll see you in the next lesson.